get the camera as well. We're going to go ahead and get started, but before we start, we want to just pray before we get this started. So, for those who are able, please kneel.
Gives us counsel on every phase of our lives, where we are to live, what we are to eat, how we are to train our children, how we are to be educated, and how we are to dress even, what kind of music we should listen to, etc., etc. So when we talk about God's remnant people, we're talking about a minute, okay? Did you know that at least 12 families from that church in Los Angeles moved up to the Idaho, Priest River, or Idaho, Washington area, and none of us conferred with each other. We never said, well, where are you going? And when are you leaving? We just each quietly moved up here. And I think we're from Kettle Falls all the way to Priest River, to Elk, to Usk, and scattered all over in almost every single one of these families. In fact, that was one thing Nora said. All the people that worked in the church in Central Filipino moved, and so there was nobody else to do anything here. So here we are, and I'm going to pass the mic to our first panelist.
My name is Brother Elvin Bridges. Our ministry is Living Manna Ministries. And pretty much it. We're originally from California, now live in Tennessee in the country. And the Lord has been working through our ministry mightily. We're very humbled by it.
My name is Bert Leverett, and part of our ministry is Breach Builders Ministry. And basically, we're a construction development ministry helping people get out of the cities. I live in Northern California, in Redding, in the country, in the mountains, and I'm originally from Southern California.
My name is
North Carolina in the mountains. I've lived there for 40 years, and I praise God for country living. And I just want to see where this all goes, where we can help you to get to the country. If you're not already there, you need to be there, and you will never be sorry that you did.
I'm Ron Nyford. I'm Vice President of Family First.
I want to ask you a question, panelists. Are there any Bible precedents for country living?
But as a student there, let's continue. As an illustration of its principles, a model school was established in Eden, the home of our first parents. The Garden of Eden was the schoolroom. Nature was the lesson book. The Creator himself was the instructor, and the parents of the human family, Adam and Eve, were the students.
He started getting greedy and he said, the prime land is right down there. Remember, when he first moved down there, he moved into the country. But he had an eye towards the city. And his wife had an eye towards the city. And his children had an eye towards the city. And by beholding, they became changed into a city mentality, which we'll talk about later. But before that,
Regarding the first city that was built by Cain, history. The descendants of the brother Seth, is it Japheth? Well, I'm drawing a blank here. Anyway, yeah. Well, anyway, there was one.
A few of them that I went through. First of all, dense darkness. There are no street lights in the country. And I had to get used to very, very dense darkness. You know, the kind of darkness that you can walk out and you really can't see where you're going. You have to have a stick in front of you to make sure you don't run into a tree. And another thing is the bugs. I had to get used to bugs. But I found out that diatomaceous earth takes care of that. You just sprinkle some, you know, here and there, you wake up the next morning and they're all dead. So, sort of loneliness, but then you look at the nature, all the beautiful things God created, and all of a sudden you start connecting closer to God. So, Sister Lynn, tell us your experience.
We lived in the wilderness on 500 acres for 15 years, and that was not my experience, not seeing people. That, you know, but there were wild animals out there. And one of the verses that we would share, because we would have groups coming out almost every weekend and teaching the wilderness survival and edible plants. And one of the main concerns for all the people were the wild animals, but the first one that almost everyone asked us about was snakes. You know, the snakes. Everybody was concerned about snakes. And so one of the verses that we shared with them, my husband is going to read it.
Husband. Ezekiel 34, verse 25. And I will make with them a covenant of peace, and will cease, and cause the evil beast to cease out of the land, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep.
Billboards. And so when we come to the country, it's so quiet that you almost are going through withdrawal symptoms in a negative way. You want to hear some noise.
It's so quiet. It is so quiet in the country, you can actually hear the still, small voice.
I know for many people here, this is all entry level, but for some of you, this may be broadcast news, breaking news alerts. So we wanted to get a general idea of how many of you got.
Ask the Lord to fulfill that promise, that He hasn't given us the spirit of fear. We are to take ourselves out into nature and recognize that this is my Father's world. And so if He has brought you to the country, He's going to keep you in the country. Don't be presumptuous, take precautions, but you never know not to allow anything to come that was not according to His will. And to recognize when you're in danger, you know, He will prompt you if you ask Him. He will help you to be safe. And so I just want to give you encouragement that you may start out with those fears, but don't hang on to them. Let Him take them away from you.
Okay, so we're going to get our comments from the audience a little bit later, so hold your points there. But I want to ask the panel, what are the spiritual benefits of being in the country and the physical benefits? Because, you know, sometimes in the city you can't even find a place to walk every day. In the country, no problem.
And you remember that in the Bible, God tells us that the tares must grow with the wheat. But as you garden, how many of us can allow weeds to grow with our principal crops? Anybody? Why? Because they take over. So, as I'm pulling the weeds, I'm saying, okay, Lord, so I'm hearing that. And God's telling me.
But what made it a blessing being in the country was He didn't have influences to pull him. And He told us that later. And in fact, he was sitting there And he said to us one day, he said, had he been, we homeschooled him. And so he was there out in the wilderness with us all the time. And I remember him telling us one day, had he been in the city in a regular school, he said, I would have been messed up because of the influences. And so that's one of the reasons God wants us out, especially if we have children, because they are not, influenced so strongly by the different pulls and et cetera in city life. And so I saw that as a great benefit. And just as a side note, when we were dealing with some of his issues as he got older, and he wasn't there a hermit, but he did see things. But there were times when
I'm just going to quickly interject here, is that you can help the young people to learn really good work ethics in the country. You will actually instill in them a love to work. And you get them out in the early morning hours and you work with them, that will be their highest delight. Because they want fellowship with you. And when you are making it a wonderful, loving opportunity, relationships are growing and bonding is taking place, and the joy of country living is surely there.
Amen.
There's a huge separation that has to do with the spiritual as far as the East is from the West. And that's of country living. I'm blessed in that I live near a town of 4,500, and I live in the suburbs on 40 acres. And so there's not that sinful
out there that I didn't in the city. First of all, my biggest joy was because we had mountains. My wife and I walked through a cloud. I know y'all might think that's, okay. It was not fog from a car or a truck, but it was a real cloud, and we saw spider webs, and we saw nature firsthand. And I mean, I'll just share this with you. I grew up in a tenement building in the Bronx, and our backyard was smaller than this room. And that to me was my nature. Of course, now with the trash that was thrown out in the back, you had to dodge because people would throw trash outside. That's the city. But when we went to the country or lived in the country, there were things that I could do that I could not do in the city. I could actually lay down in the grass and go to sleep and wake up. And I know you're saying, that's crazy, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Let's segue into, now we're in the country, and what do you need to establish a good?
We have an orchard, and we grew quite a few trees, but we had a problem recently, which is an ongoing problem every year, where I think it was about 3 years ago, a black bear, climbed the fence, and he got into our orchard, and he just helped himself with all the apples. In fact, he lived in the orchard because I wasn't at home for a while, so he just stayed there for days on end. And he broke all the apple trees, broke the top. He's climbing up into the apple trees, and he just broke the tops off, and he just ate all the apples. And as a result of that, I said, well, what am I going to eat? So I found myself going down into Costco to get apples and to buy apple trees.
So, Brother Labor, I have a question for you. How did you solve that problem?
I'm still working on solving that problem.
Does anybody here on the panel know how to keep bears off your property in the orchard?
Let me finish, and then I'd like to hear from you, because I know I'm going to learn something today.
Okay.
This has been pulling my hair out for years. But yeah, so one of the things that I did was I put up an electric fence. We put up an electric fence, and it wasn't very effective. I guess the bear just was determined.
Okay.
One thing about a bear is when he learns that there's food there, there's very little that's going to stop him from short of a person standing in front of them. Right.
There's two answers, one for vegetarians and one for non-vegetarians.
So,
Okay, brother, go right ahead. Come on, please. Your name?
Kent Lowry. I planted my trees in Illinois Whitewood, and if you've ever done it, it's a lot of work. And I never seen trees produce so much produce. I had to support,
Could you put the mic up?
I had to support every single branch on my apple trees to support the way they grew.
Now, Brother Kent, how do you, we need to,
So getting to the point.
okay.
So, yeah, today, we did not own a firearm. We did not own a firearm. And so, and it seemed like we were just like getting lucky. Nothing was ever happening. We had all this food. You could smell it even at our gate, a quarter mile. You could smell it in the air all through. And so I'm like, this is the first time any bears were. So we went a couple of years like that. And then one Friday, when I went out to the orchard, it's like, wow, the apple tree looks different. It's kind of like its little branches are really heavy. And I went up there and I saw that the center, the feeder, or the, was snapped off. And I thought, oh, it's just too heavy. I went in and looked and saw there was claw marks on my apples.
How did you get rid of the bear?
So, well, it was Friday, and and then I went and saw that he had ate every single one of my plums. And I had a plum tree, and he bent those branches down. And so I don't think that I've been angry for a long time like that. I felt like I've been violently ripped off. And in appearance, it sounded, there's nothing almost sounds like nothing I can do. Let me tell you, it was the hardest thing to, when my wife would say, do you trust God? I did not want to go to church. I went to church knowing my trees were going to be destroyed.
Can't hear you, Brother.
I went to church knowing my trees were going to be destroyed.
Man, is that a good tip or not? But, okay, how
Right.
much time do we have, by the way? Brother Kent, I'd like for you to tell us quickly how the Ellen G. White method of planting an orchard. Or a fruit
I
tree.
can-
And you know that too, brother.
Okay, so our walk is supposed to be, our spiritual walk with God is supposed to involves obeying every particular. And if you've been to my property, it's not the way the soil is and how much shale I have in my soil. It's not what would be deemed an agricultural piece of property. But Ellen White said that if we work the land, it'll produce its. So we went ahead and dug the 3-foot by 3-foot holes, and we followed each step. Mountain Media Ministries has, am I correct there?
Yes.
A video that goes through the whole process. So rather than me take.
But we would even play not only talk radio, but we even had like music playing intermittently. We had a light that would come on that was motion detection. Everything. I guess because the orchard is so big, he just went around on the other side, came up. Well,
I think in a lot of instances, a lot of Adventists even Adventists that are living in the country that made the country move, it's portrayed or perceived as being a light issue, but I believe, based on my studies, it's a salvational issue. It's very serious business. We got a telephone going on. Sister White makes a couple of very, very serious statements, one which is very profound, I believe. It's found in the book Mind, Character, and Personality. It's book 1, page 53. She says, now, as never before, we need to understand the true science of education. That's the purpose of living in the country, to reflect the character of Jesus. And we can't reflect this character fully living in the midst of a sinful environment. It's very difficult.
To kind of add to what he's to what he's sharing with us is that when we don't grow our own food or we're not participating in the management of our food, something is being stolen from us. You know, the Lord tells us that to be able to plant and to harvest and to eat is a blessing from Him. Have you read that in your Bible? It's, you know, the Lord tells us that's a blessing.
And I set it up. And I set up all the parts, the base and the post, the standard, the rim, the net, and the backboard. Laid the backboard down, which was a pure fiberglass see-through backboard. It was professional. Put it down, laid it down on the grass. Didn't think anything about it. Walked in the house for about 5 minutes because I forgot a tool.
In the city. And the reason is most of the produce that you get from the store has about 10% of the nutrients that you get when you grow it yourself if you prepare the soil properly, because all the nutrients come out of the soil. And if you grow stuff in depleted soil, you won't be getting any nutrients in your body, and therefore you'll be a sickly vegetarian.
Also, you need to eat it within 24 hours of picking it, so you get those glyconutrients, and you will get, that's live food.
The Servant of the Lord tells us that if we live in the country and we have a garden, we will live like what? Kings and queens. Now, there is more to that statement than meets the eye. First of all, Brother Ron talked about the nutrition in the food, but it's so much more than that. Our food has almost become poison to us that you buy in the store, from irradiation to GMOs and glyphosate, etc. So we really need to, you know what? If we're in the country, we need to be growing something. My first garden is in pots. This is the first garden here. 35 years ago, we had a real garden, a huge garden, and a garden on the porch. But now I'm in a different location, and so I have to take it one step at a time as God leads. But all of us need to find out. You cannot do this at the last minute under stress. We need to find out how to.
This year or the next, they will come back year after year with no effort. And I've done that, and in fact, one of the plants, I'll just use one as an example, burdock. I planted one plant, and of course these wild plants reseed themselves. I had them taller than my house. I had to take them out. This is the nature of these wild plants, and I wanted to share with you in
I have a question for you,
2
Sister.
Kings. Mm-hmm.
Before you go, this is really important, because one of my friends has a garden, and callaloo just comes up, and it's so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
How can I get callaloo in my garden?
I would take it out of, if you don't want it in your garden.
No.
You said your friend.
I want to get some of my friends and put it in my garden so it grows in my garden.
Take it from her, you know, from her garden, that, you know, whatever she lets you have, and just bring it to your house and plant it in an area by itself. Or if you wanted to, you know, grow in your garden, just plant it right there.
Okay.
You won't have to worry the next year it will come back.
You don't have to get seeds.
No, you don't have to get seeds. These wild plants reseed themselves. But here in 2 Kings 19, and you can read the backstory behind it, but this is what the Lord said. And this shall be a sign unto thee. Ye shall eat this year such things as grow of themselves. And in the second year that which springeth of the same. And in the third year sow ye and reap and plant vineyards and eat the fruits thereof. So there was a backstory to why he told them to do this. But I'm telling you, these wild plants are highly nutritious, so much that the FDA was trying to consider them toxic because they are not, you know, we haven't messed with them. We haven't tried to improve them because they're just calling them weeds. But these quote-unquote weeds are actually food.
And the interesting, let me say this. The interesting thing about
Joaquin Valley produces 70% of the produce for the entire nation. And I was doing a Sabbath school class at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I was talking about the vine and the branch. And here I am trying to explain gardening or how to reap grapes, as well as like apples and other things like that. Well, I didn't know that there were pickers in my class from the farms out in the San Joaquin Valley. And so the one guy came up to me afterwards and he began questioning me, and he saw that I wasn't that knowledgeable, and I humbled myself. But he said, I want to take you out to where, you know, we grow our grapes and whatnot here in the valley. So the next day on Sunday, we went out.
This is a professional grower. Tell us.
The taste that you enjoy in fruit and in vegetables has to do with the minerals and the nutrients that the plant is uptaking. So if you want nutrient-rich food, make sure that your soil profile has the micronutrients, it has the macronutrients that the plant needs. There's 5 cations that must be in the soil that every plant needs. Some will say from 20 to 18 to 17 specific essential nutrients that our plants need. So have your soil tested, have it evaluated, and then add what it doesn't have. But the nutrients that the plant takes up makes the difference on what the food, because it causes the plant to binge on water and nutrients. So for that profile, they make sure that they have lots of nutrients in the soil, lots of water is given to it, size and weight. The plants will do exactly that. They will binge for 5 days and they give another treatment. They'll binge for another 5 days.
One proposition after another was made, till finally Satan himself thought of a plan. He would take the fruit of the vine, also wheat, and 3 other things given by God as food, and would convert them into poisons, Brother Bert, not that he's doing that, no, your testimony, amen, which would ruin man's physical, mental, and moral powers, the 3 aspects of man, right? Mind, body.
Add a few things. We'll take one question or 2 from the audience. But first of all, lastly, I have 6 books here, and I'm going to give them away. I mean, if you're going to buy property, get at least 5 acres, and that's treed, so you can use it to keep warm. You also need the proper tools, and if you don't know what that is, you have to find out. If you're an older person, a senior citizen, you need to get with another older person and get some young people on the property. Don't move to the property by yourself. God gave you the privilege of coming out first so you can help some more people come out. You should not be selfish. Make an extra room, a guest house, a little cabins, or, okay, so that you can have, oh, she wanted one. Okay, very good. So everybody that's in the city has now a book. We're going to have a closing prayer, but before we do, is there a pressing question from the audience? Yes. Yes, quickly.
All right, my pressing question is, practically, for anyone who's done this, how do you balance finances between, because all this takes money. The vision.
Animals. I've seen 200-pound cougars, black bears, very close. And just a healthy caution goes a long ways. Deer are actually something that are very frustrating. They got into my garden last night and ate most of it. Sometimes these animals have to have a lead injection because they just do not get the idea. The radio doesn't work, but I don't want to scare you.
We're out of time
But
here.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let us have prayer. I'm going to ask Brother Bridges, would you close with prayer and pray for those?
You personalize the question. You ask, is anything too hard for me? Now we know, dear Lord, these are rhetorical questions because the obvious answer is no. There is nothing, Lord, beyond your ability to do, to fix, to address, and to bless. So we pray, Lord, that you would please place your loving hand on each family represented here that desires to leave the city. We know that it is all of us up here, all of us in this room who have done that.